The Mughal Empire in the Indian subcontinent was established in the year 1526. The empire was greatly expanded by its founder, Emperor Babur, who died soon after in 1530. Babur was succeeded in India by his eldest son Humayun. Soon after Humayun took over as the new Mughal emperor, problems started developing in his empire. Humayun was challenged by various Indian powers, and his reign was marked by constant warfare. Most of Humayun's early conflicts were with the Sultanate of Gujarat. Humayun was eventually able to come out on top in this conflict. He would, however, have to soon deal with a major uprising in the eastern parts of his empire. The Afghans had strengthened themselves under the capable leadership of Sher Shah Suri. The rivalry between the Mughals and the Afghans culminated at the Battle of Chausa, followed by the Battle of Kannauj in the next year. Humayun faced humiliating defeats in both battles, and he had to escape from India. The Afghans occupied most of the Indian subcontinent, and this led to the crowning of Sher Shah Suri as the new emperor of Delhi. Tariq-e-Sher Shahi is the biography of Emperor Sher Shah Suri. That source has been extensively used in the preparation of this video documentary. After his victory at the Battle of Kannauj, Sher Shah occupied Delhi, Agra, and all the regions formerly ruled by Humayun to the east of Punjab. He received news that Humayun had made a stand at Lahore and was reorganizing his army. So Sher Shah dispatched his general Burmazid Gaur with a formidably large number of troops to deal with Humayun. Humayun was not confident enough to face the pursuing Afghan troops, so he escaped from Punjab and headed towards Sindh. At this point, the Afghan troops gave up pursuit and occupied Punjab. Meanwhile, Sher Shah Suri had reorganized the administration of the newly conquered regions. The old Mughal administration was replaced with a new Afghan government. Thereafter, he set his sights on the western parts of his kingdom. Sher Shah reached Punjab, that was already occupied by his generals. The region between the Chenab and the Indus River was controlled by local Baloch chiefs. Sher Shah intended to expand his influence in that region. So he undertook campaigns and subdued the Baloch chiefs. Sher Shah then moved to a mountainous region located between the Jhelum and the Indus River. This strategic location is known as the Ghakkar country. Despite most of the Ghakkar chiefs accepting the authority of Sher Shah Suri, some continued to defy the emperor. Sher Shah ordered the construction of a huge fort on the bank of the Jhelum River to secure his northwestern border. This fort was named Rohtas. Having garrisoned this region, Sher Shah returned to Delhi. At Delhi, serious news from Bengal reached Sher Shah Suri. The Afghan governor of Bengal, named Khizr Khan, had engaged in a rebellious conduct. Khizr Khan had married the daughter of the former Sultan of Bengal, Ghiyasuddin Mahmud Shah. This earned him the sympathy of a section of the Bengali nobility. Governor Khizr Khan started ignoring the imperial orders and started behaving as if he was the independent king of Bengal. Sher Shah reacted with promptitude. He marched towards Bengal with a huge army. Khizr Khan was keen on resisting, but his officers wished to avoid bloodshed. Khizr Khan was eventually captured and was subjected to imprisonment. In order to put an end to the possibilities of future rebellion in Bengal, Sher Shah abolished the position of the governor of that province altogether. There was a thorough restructuring in the administration of Bengal. Sher Shah divided the province into several districts, each placed under the charge of an officer called Shikdar. Shikdars of various districts were not provided with a huge army. They were supplied with troops just enough to maintain order in districts. The Shikdars were to report directly to the king. Sher Shah appointed the Shikdars himself. A civilian called Qazi Fazilat was appointed as the head of the province of Bengal. He was tasked with supervising the actions of all the Shikdars and was given the responsibility of having to settle any possible dispute between them. The Qazi Fazilat did not command large troops. In addition to ensuring the smooth administration of all the Bengal districts, his duties included informing the king of any possible conspiracy against him in Bengal. The introduction of this new arrangement brought about a drastic change in the political structure of Bengal. Sher Shah returned to Agra after restoring stability in Bengal. Thereafter, he wished to conquer Malwa to secure the southern border of his empire. The ruler of Malwa, Sultan Qadir Shah, had angered Sher Shah Suri in the past by refusing to cooperate with him against the Mughals. Sher Shah quickly captured the city of Gwalior in northern Malwa. Sultan Qadir Shah panicked and offered surrender to Sher Shah Suri. Sher Shah promised him generous terms of surrender. Yet Qadir Shah was not convinced of his safety and he fled to the court of the Gujarat Sultanate for refuge. Therefore, Malwa was easily annexed by the Suri Empire. Sher Shah appointed his general Shujat Khan as his new governor in the province of Malwa. While returning to Agra, Sher Shah stopped at Ranthambore, that is located in eastern Rajputana. The king of Ranthambore was persuaded sufficiently by diplomacy to become a vassal of the Suri Empire. Sher Shah returned to Agra and remained there for around 1 year. During this time, he devoted himself to organizing the administration of his empire. It might be a good idea to have a look at his major administrative reforms before discussing his further military campaigns. Sher Shah Suri was keen on centralizing the administration of his empire. Sher Shah nearly exercised absolute powers. He liked to use those powers for the welfare of the common people. His ministers had the duty of smoothly running the administration of the empire, but they did not have the authority to initiate new policies or bring about radical changes. Those powers were held by the emperor himself. There were 4 major ministries in the kingdom of Sher Shah Suri. The first was the Ministry of Revenue and Finance. Sher Shah had prior experience of working in the revenue department. Thus, he formed a close relationship with this minister. The second was the Ministry of Army. This minister was not the commander-in-chief of the military. He was just responsible for its recruitment, organization, and discipline. He ensured regular payment to the troops. This minister also developed a friendly bond with the emperor, as Sher Shah was himself a military genius. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs came third. Its duties included keeping the emperor well informed of the recent developments in the neighboring nations, as well as those in the far-flung parts of his empire. The Ministry of Royal Communications was the last but certainly not the least. Its job was to maintain communications with the governor of various provinces in the empire. It was also responsible for maintaining government records. There were two other significant officers, the Chief Justice and the Chief of the Intelligence Department. This structure of administration resembled the Delhi Sultanate. Some provinces in the empire were directly under the charge of subedars or governors. The vassal states of the empire were ruled by the local rulers. However, Sher Shah believed in exercising strict control over them. The villages in the empire were semi-autonomous in terms of administration. Villages were run by panchayat, a group of elite people who worked for the welfare of the region and was responsible for the settlement of disputes. Sher Shah continued the policy of the Lodi Empire of distributing special privileges to the Afghan population in the Indian subcontinent, as well as to those in the native lands of Afghanistan. They were offered positions that were suitable to their abilities. The Suri army composed of Afghans who fought alongside the Indian natives. The soldiers were paid partly in cash and partly by land grants. Army commanders were appointed by the emperor himself. Sher Shah took steps to minimize corruption in the army and maximize its efficiency. Proper training arrangements were made for the newly recruited soldiers in the army. The two sources of revenue were central revenue and land revenue. Land revenue included the taxes from lands, while central revenue consisted of unclaimed property, taxes on salt and trade, and taxation on transportation of goods. Sher Shah was credited with introducing land revenue reforms that benefited his subjects. Land for each cultivator was measured, and productivity of the lands were estimated. Taxes could be paid in both cash or kind, though cash was preferred. Involvement of middlemen were minimized, fostering direct relations between farmers and the government officials. The basic tax rate was 1/3 of the agricultural production. Additionally, 5% had to be paid as the surveyor's fee, along with 2.5% additional cess. So the total land tax rate was around 40%. Sher Shah introduced various policies to safeguard the interests of the agriculturists. Oppressive tax collectors were identified and were meted out harsh punishments. The farmers who had their crops destroyed due to the march of the army were suitably compensated. Sher Shah managed to establish direct relations between the cultivator and the government that benefited both parties. Sher Shah abolished all old mixed metal currencies and issued large number of silver coins. A fixed ratio of copper and silver was maintained. A silver rupee weighed 180 grams, of which 175 grams were pure silver. That very ratio and arrangement continued during the Mughal period and was even retained by the English East India Company till the early 19th century. With the intention of promoting trade across his empire, Sher Shah diminished commercial taxation rates. Taxes were charged from traders at the point of entry to the kingdom and at the location of sale. These reforms helped trade prosper, leading to economic growth. The army, along with protecting the borders, also had the responsibility of preventing crime within the empire. The police system was yet to come into existence at that point. In villages, the local leader or headman was responsible for the prevention of crimes. He would have to compensate the victim from his own pocket if he failed to identify the culprit of the incident of robbery. Although this arrangement might appear extreme compared to the standards of modern times, it did have the desirable effect of minimizing crime rates. Having attained stability in his kingdom, Sher Shah now wished to expand his empire into central India. The Suri Empire has been firmly established in the Indian subcontinent and is going strong. Will Sher Shah Suri be able to expand into central India? Will the Suri Empire continue to rule India for centuries? Will Sher Shah Suri introduce more administrative reforms? You can find out by watching the next episode of this documentary series. Thank you for watching.